Okay, we'll go on to public forum. Can I welcome Bill Southworth, Dougal Stevenson, Bill Brown and Judy Southworth from the Sims Building Action Group. Welcome.
That work?
Welcome, Bill. The next 5 minutes are yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, councillors, for giving us some time to talk to you about the Sims building. I'm the spokesperson for a group of West Harbour people who are very keen to see the Sims building, that large brick one between Port Chalmers and Carey's Bay, maintained. We know that this council has an excellent record of maintaining heritage buildings, and we all know how good that has been for Dunedin. And the thing about the Sims building is that it's the last remnant in Port Chalmers of a great industrial past. And we believe that the history of the industrial side of Port Chalmers is worth preserving. And what we're actually proposing is that that building be turned into an industrial museum. In the submissions you've been given, you may have time to flick through to some coloured photographs at the back. The inside of that building is magnificent. It doesn't look like much from the outside, it looks like an old relic, but inside it's a wonderful testament to the craftsmanship of our forebears. Now, what we're actually proposing is it become an industrial maritime museum that will look back into the past of Port Chalmers as a major shipbuilding area. We've already checked with the Hocken Library. There are a ton of historic photographs there. Once upon a time, there were 150 workers there. A foundry, a smithy, many workshops. In fact, its industrial footprint was so big, those of you who know Port Chalmers, it went all the way to the fish and chip shop, all the way around the front there. It was huge. And what we're seeking from you is support and principle for turning that into an industrial museum, and also a multi-function, multi-purpose community facility. We'll return in February seeking financial assistance from you, and this presentation is just by way of an introduction to our thinking. We're a local group, and we include business people, architects, heritage people, and so on. And to give you an idea of why that place is so important, there they built, would you believe, 7 minesweepers. They built the dredges that won the gold from the Otago rivers. During the war, they plated damaged battleships from the war in the Pacific. It really was a major, major centre. Indeed, they even repaired Shackleton's ship, the Aurora, there. So the history there it's redolent with history. It's a great place to set up a museum. And as I say, we would do that with historic photographs, with plaques and so on. We're also applying for an historic listing for that building from New Zealand Heritage. We have the support of Marion Hobbs, who is the new chair of New Zealand's New Zealand Heritage. So what else could we do with that building? Well, we've taken a lot of suggestions and we'd still be working on them over the next few months. We also see it as a multi-use facility. Things like art galleries, markets, functions, boat stacking, weddings, a climbing wall perhaps. And we do have great support from the local maritime union. They're very happy with the idea of a museum that would also cover the very important maritime history and union history of Port Chalmers. We do have one concern at the moment. You may know the building has no roof on it. That was removed some time ago because of concerns about asbestos. And since then, it has been just left there open to the weather. We had thought that the roof would be returned. You'll find a loose letter there. An employee of the DCC talked to the community board, and at that time gave an undertaking that once the roof was removed, a temporary roof would be put on. Well, that simply hasn't happened since then. And we believe that that building should be protected. And as I say, if you look at those photographs there of the inside of it, it is a magnificent historic relic, well worth preserving. We've done some preliminary costings about returning the roof, doing the cladding, doing some work on trees that overhang it. And we believe that that work could be done for about $450,000. And that figure does include quite a big factor of overrun of $140,000. And in getting those costs together, we've talked to people that you may be well aware of, like Stephen McKnight, the heritage builder and architect. We talked with Lund Construction, and we talked with a roofing outfit. Those figures I've just given you also include earthquake strengthening, basic earthquake strengthening. You'll also find in the submission, which I know you're very busy people, but I do hope you have the chance to read, a business case where we estimate that going by standard warehouse renting costs in Port Chalmers, we could generate an income somewhere between $60,000 and $80,000 a year. As I say, we're seeking your support in principle. We'll be back in February with a much more detailed case, but this is just to apprise you all of what we're about. We hope to see most of you back here in February. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Are you happy to take questions?
Yes, absolutely.
Questions, councillors? Councillor O'Malley.
Thanks for your submission, Bill. Would you say that putting the roof back on is priority number one from your perspective?
Definitely.
Yep, thanks.
Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's not so much a question, I was waiting for those to be exhausted, but I think it would be helpful, because we can't discuss this matter here, if we could get a report back with urgency to the incoming council around the future of the Sims building, given that it's been over a year now since the community in the West Harbour were asked what they saw the future of that building being.
We'll certainly look at that as a result. Any other questions? Councillor Steedman.
Early on when the roof was taken off, we were told that there'll be no detrimental effect to the interior. Since that's happened, has there been any detrimental effect to the interior?
Well, the DCC is looking after that building very well. They don't let anybody into it, so we basically don't know. But we do believe to sit there with no roof on for year after year, it must be some internal damage occurring.
Right, so you haven't actually seen any detriment, and because you haven't been able to go to
No,
sites?
we can't point to any, yeah.
Okay.
Councillor Vanders.
Regarding the ongoing use of the building, my experience is that for a building to really be saved long term, it needs to have a viable use. Have you done a business plan to show that a museum there would be viable long term?
What we have done is, because we don't envisage that the entire space would be taken up with a museum, it would be a multi-use facility. The museum would be very important, but we have estimated the area that wouldn't be used for the museum would, as I mentioned, there's a business case attached there, should generate somewhere between $60,000 and $80,000 a year. Now, as to whether or not people would be attracted to an industrial museum, I believe they would, because we've done enough research to see that that place has a fascinating history. And given the fact that it's the last last remnant of the industrial history of that port, there's much to put in there. I think I mentioned to you some of the things like the repair of ships, the repair of warships, Shackleton ship and so on, and the history of the local union. I believe that would attract people, and I should say that we don't see it as being at all in conflict with the existing port museum, which concentrates on the non-industrial maritime history of the port. And incidentally, we've consulted with them, they're very happy, and they expect to give us their formal support later.
And would you expect to get donations, for instance, of big old industrial lathes, other bits of equipment that might have been used there or been used for that kind of thing in time? Because people aren't going to come and want to see an empty building.
Right. Yes, we know where some of the machinery is that was there, and we think we hope we can access it. Also, in terms of sponsorship, at various times that building has been operated by people like Fletcher's, and will go to anybody that has some link with it, seeking not only sponsorship but anything that they can give us.
If Councillor Gary.
Mr Southworth, thank you for your address. I was interested to know how long heritage status would take to acquire.
I wasn't part of that application. It's been made locally, and it was filed with them a month or two ago. But I'll undertake to find that out for you and send you that information.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Hall.
Have you talked to the Historic Fire Brigade, because they are looking to display their fire brigades in the museum? They've got about 17 fully rebuilt fire brigades.
No, we haven't, but thank you very much for that suggestion.
They have
we'll
a lot,
also follow that up.
They have a lot of inquiries from all around the world for people coming here wanting to see them.
Right, right.
Any further questions? Thank you very much, Bill. Appreciate it.